All right, let's go ahead and get started. This is project management with Trello. My name is Sherry Taylor and I work at the Center for Governmental Studies at Northern Illinois University. I primarily work on data, and so I am currently the interim lead for the State Data Center Network in Illinois. And so if you need any assistance with census data or other publicly available data, you can give me a call and I can help you out. My contact information is on this slide as well as the last slide, and I do believe everybody will be receiving access to all of the recordings and the presentations after the conference.
Once you log into Trello, this is what your homepage will look like. Each one of these graphics is a different project. So your starred boards are those that you want to keep up at the top. Those are the active projects that you're actually working on. And then on the left-hand side, you can see that there's lists of whatever teams you might want to create so that you can add a team rather than doing individual members all the time. In order to go into the project, all you do is click on that particular graphic.
Here we have an example of what an actual board looks like. This is for the ISAC 60 by 25 project. And so you'll see across the top it has the information on any teams that have been assigned to this particular project as well as the individual members that entails. So the first row across the top is all of the different types of columns. So we've got to do and working on it, published to test site, tables to be uploaded. And so the way you work this is you can grab any one of these task cards from one column and just drag it over to be into a different column. So that's how we keep track of how folks are working and what the workflow is that's taking place. So I've highlighted one of the cards for quality checking over on the left-hand side, and you can see that there's 3 of us that are assigned to that particular card. And if you double click on it, then it'll open up the card. And this is what an actual card looks like. So across the top, you'll see we have the title, run the dashboard site through a validator in order to make sure that it is ADA compliant. And the uniqueness about the title is whenever you do a search in Trello in order to find specific cards, it only looks at the title. It won't look at any of the text within that card at all, or members or anything like that. It will only look for the title names. So you need to be real careful about making sure that you have all of your keywords in that title. Even if it doesn't make any sense for the title, make sure your keywords are in there so you can find it later on. Then underneath that, you'll see that the 3 team members that have been assigned to this particular card. The description box remains at the top of the card at all times, so if you have additional information that's helpful, you can put it in there. And then you'll see all the activity. So this is where it tracks what people are doing on that particular card. If they move it from one column to another, if somebody makes comments or makes attachments, it all goes into this activity, which is more like the history of the card. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see a members button in order to add people. The labels is really helpful. We've used that in a variety of ways, either to identify specific kinds of talents. So if you have members on the team that are only going to be working on this component of that particular project, you might want to add labels so that when they go into the board, you could have a couple hundred cards there. They can easily look for the label and bring those up so that they don't have to sift through hundreds of cards. Checklist I'm going to get to. Due date is nice. You add a due date in there and it will change the color of the card. So the closer you get to the actual due date, the more red it becomes. And so it's a great visual when people first come in to see which needs urgent attention. And then attachments. You can attach anything. And what's nice about it is it really keeps track of the relevant information for that particular card. So when we're working on websites, for example, we might be posting, snippets of code and stuff of that nature. The drawback is if you're using the free version, you are limited to 10 megs. And so you can attach quite a bit using that, but if you're going to be attaching like an incomplete data set that's quite large or whatever, I'm going to show you how to get around that. Cover is just making it look fancy on the top of your card. It really has no functionality, so we don't use it. Butler tips, as you see below that, that's one of the power-ups that we can use. There's a whole variety that are available that are either by subscription or freely available. And so if you're looking for Trello to do specific tasks that is not readily available, you can always go into the power-ups and see if you can find some in there. And then below that, you see the red arrow. The action buttons we really don't use, except for one, which unfortunately didn't get into this particular graphic, but it's called archive. And so if you want to get rid of cards, the best thing is to just archive them to get them off the board, because sometimes you get way too many cards. But it took me a long time just to figure out how to delete a card, because sometimes you get duplicate cards. You know, we'll have a team meeting and a couple of us will go ahead and enter a card to make sure that it's not lost, and we get the work done. But anyway, in order to delete a card, you have to archive it first, and then you get the option to delete it. So that's why I put the red arrow to make sure that I touch upon that. So here's what a checklist would look like on a card. And so you just click on checklist and it brings up all these different text boxes that you can add and subtract and change the text to be whatever you want. And so I just brought up this example of a report. You know, you got to meet with stakeholders. Well, we already did that. So if you check the checkbox, it crosses it off, and then you get the progress bar, you know, to show how much you have left to do. Now, the good thing about the checklist is it's great for subtasks. The bad thing about checklist is if you don't, when you set up these cards, one team member usually grabs that card and moves it over to working on it, which means that team member now is responsible for that task. So if there are any questions, that's the person that we all go to. Now they may refer to other people to help them with different aspects of it, that's fine, but that person is then solely responsible for making sure it gets done. If you do a checklist, and a checklist involves a different group of people to work on different aspects, now you could have some confusion over, you know, how things are getting done. So I usually prefer to just make separate cards. So there'd be 4 different cards for these 4 different items under checklist. So you may have something that works a little bit better. I just wanted to highlight it so that you understood what it was and that it is available. But I have not found any real use for checklist unless it's one person that would be responsible for all the subtasks. I want to point out the difference between the search capabilities within Trello. There is a search bar up at the top of the home page, and whenever you go onto a board, and that particular search bar searches the titles of cards for all the boards. It's not just the actual board that you're in, so all your projects it would bring stuff up for. So that gets to be a bit much. In order to just search that particular project, you click on the menu button over on the right hand side, and then up comes this panel that's on the left here. And you know, you can see pretty much the same kind of information within that panel. There's really not much new, except there is the search cards option, and you click on that, it brings up a regular search box for you, and you can enter your information in there, and then that will restrict the search to just that project. Now, if you click on the More button right below that, the next panel comes up, which is the one on the right. And this is where you would access your archives. And so if you go in there and click on that, it'll bring up everything from your archives so that you can take a look and search and do whatever you want to do in there. I mentioned earlier that I was going to talk about the snip tool or snipping tool. I don't know what the equivalent is on Mac, so if somebody has a Mac and is familiar with it, if you can put it in the chat box, that'd be great. But this is something that I use all the time, and I make sure it's on my shortcut bars so I can access it right away. But we use the snipping tool in order to share visuals and code and whatever else comes to mind that we need to add into Trello. And it's real quick and easy to use. The mode, I have the different options over here on the right, where it's freeform, window, or full screen. So you can do those, but the rectangular option is the default. And all that means is when you click on new, it'll give you a cursor that you need to drag across, and it'll grab everything that is within that rectangle. So I'll be able to actually show how this works when we do the live demo, but I wanted to bring it up because it's really handy. All right, so we're to the money part, and so I'll talk a little bit about pricing. Now you can see the free version, which really gives you everything. I haven't really found a need to upgrade to business or enterprise. The only downside of the free version is that you can only upload up to 10 megs. So if you need more than that, what you need to do is have somebody on the team get a paid version, and I'm going to show you an easier way to do that.
Instead of looking for pricing on the Trello website and going to their main page, you want to go do a search for Trello Gold. This will get you to where I am paying the $45 per year or $5 per month, which is so much easier, and it gives you all the same kinds of upgrades. You can see you can also get a 12-month free of Trello Gold for your teammates, which is really nice, you know, if you want to test it out and see if it'd be worthwhile, the $45 per year mark. But anyway, that gives you an idea of where you can go to get the benefits, because this does not come up automatically when you're searching for pricing on their website. We're going to talk about a couple of the different cons. We already talked about the 10 meg uploads and how you can get around that. But another problem that we've had is searching through cards, especially if you're looking for something in particular. You could have thousands of cards that you need to sift through. And so what we've learned over the years is Trello only searches on the title. So you have to be really careful on how you title your cards, because that is all you have. So make sure, even if you have to write a paragraph as the title of the card in order to make sure you get all the different keywords included in there, it'll be beneficial to you down the road. The labeling, they could do more with the labeling to be a little bit more customizable for the different cards, but I mean, we make do. It is functional, but there's some room for improvement there. But the biggest point, you know, whether you're using Trello or a different kind of software, is not to put too much detail in any of these software programs. Really keep it very high level at the 50,000 foot, you know, altitude, and then, you know, any other details, you can discuss that in person or over a Zoom meeting or anything like that, but not in these project management softwares, because otherwise you will just lose so much time trying to get everything organized in there that nothing will get accomplished. All right, that's the end of the PowerPoint presentation, but it's not the end of this session. I'm going to switch over to the live demo.